Welcome to the Dallas Digital Summit 2013. I guess this is the first session. This is one of 4 sessions on social media in this room this morning. This is really the more of the high-level session that kind of sets the table for the rest to give you an idea of where I'm coming from, because I've had a chance to talk with a number of you while we were waiting, and there are folks from agencies that are working on the consumer side. There are folks in different corporate roles, IT, marketing, and others. Where we've come from, it really kind of informs how we look at social media. I am founder of an agency called Idea Grove, which is based in Dallas. We had 2 people 2.5 years ago. We have 21 people today, so it's been growing. We're a public relations-driven digital marketing firm that focuses specifically on B2B, and within that, principally enterprise software and B2B technology. So that's very much the perspective I come from and the kinds of clients we work with in social. Why I think a lot of that work that we do is relevant to everyone is because when you're doing social and doing content about topics like enterprise content management and business process outsourcing and service virtualization software testing and data centers, you can very easily make a lot of noise in social media and have no impact, because there's a very focused group of people that even care about any of these topics. And so you have to get really focused with your social media strategies in order to have any impact that you can measure. So anyway, this was the mapping and implementing your social media strategy is the topic I was given. We all have learned, I think, in social media and content that titles are important, and so I thought, well, maybe I can jazz this up a little bit. So my wife and I, my wife's here, we were iced in here over the weekend. Who here is from Dallas? Okay, so you all were too. So you probably watched a lot of TV like us, and we watched about 12 hours of binge watching of Walking Dead on Netflix. Who's seen Walking Dead? Okay, so we liked the show. It took quite a bit of coaxing to get my wife to watch it with me. Whenever she got very scared, I couldn't walk up behind her suddenly or anything like that. And whenever she went to the bathroom while we were watching it, she would say, "Promise me you're not going to turn," you know? The language of Walking Dead being turned into a zombie. So anyway, that gave me the idea. Maybe we could go with a theme like how not to become a social media zombie. And so what I mean by that, I guess you get a sense of it. You know, there's so much automation, there's so many bots, there's so many just kind of brands passing in the night without any really authentic engagement, that there's a real danger of just being within all these millions of people on Twitter, for example, just feeling very lonely, like, what am I doing out here? And so perhaps you've worried that you might, or your brand might be turning into a social media zombie. So to help you decide, here are 3 signs that you might be turning. If you've posed this statement to yourself: I seem like a real person from a distance, but not upon closer inspection. So in other words, far away, a zombie, they were people once, and so they could kind of look like a person, but once you get to know them, get up a little close, it's a little scary. And so what often happens with our social media presence for a brand is people might see a post that's interesting. They might come to check it out, and then they realize that there's really no relationship building or interaction going on, that you've programmed out your Hootsuite or Spreadfast or whatever you're using and just blasting this stuff out on broadcast, and you're not truly interacting in a meaningful way. Or you're putting content out there that's not focused on who the needs and interests of the people you're trying to reach. Perhaps you've said to yourself, I'm considered an annoyance by my target audience. So what happens a lot if a brand hasn't really thought about what kind of content to put out there, what kind of content in social media that, that its audience would be interested in, what it tends to do is talk about itself. And so, like, if you look at this zombie here, he's me, right? He has no interest in what's important to his target. It's all about him. And I think that that's a real challenge that many brands have in social is they're so focused on their product, they're so focused on a message that they want to get across that they forget about the fact that that's actually going to be counter to their interest and drive people away. Too often I just follow the pack and I'm not sure why. I think that if you got the automation going, you've got this kind of self-serving, talking about your brand and yourself going, you start to wonder what the point of it is. You realize you're not getting any results and you're trying to figure out how to change that. So you go to whatever the latest guru is saying, the latest blog post. On Facebook, post an image. On Facebook, don't post an image, post text. On Facebook, EdgeRank's important. Analytics is important. No, EdgeRank's not important. Analytics is not important. The list goes on, and the reality is it's very much a shifting landscape, and if you try to chase around whatever the supposed best practices are in a kind of a one-size-fits-all way, you're not going to get anywhere. Ultimately, all of these kinds of things that challenges that brands and people face in social media come down to one problem, which is that studies by Altimeter Group, eConsultancy, others have shown that 70% or more of marketers can't connect social media to revenues. So if you can't tie what you're doing to a very specific goal like that and show the impact it's having and measure against that, it's very easy to kind of get lost and start wandering aimlessly like a walker. So this is the path of becoming a social media zombie. So Cami, who's speaking later, is going to speak specifically about measurement. But what I want to talk about is some of the things that you can do to set yourself up to have measurable success. So we're going to map out a plan to survive and thrive. I learned a little bit about this from watching 12 episodes of Walking Dead in 2 days, and I think that I realized that that it's quite an accomplishment to be able to survive in a zombie apocalypse, and so some of the lessons that I learned from watching the show I think apply to social media as well. So you have to know your target. So Daryl knows, for example, that you have to shoot the zombie in the head, or it won't die. If you shoot the zombie in the chest or anywhere else in the body, they will just keep coming at you. So you really have to know where you're aiming your weapon. Social media, you have to look at the higher level goals, and it's amazing how many brands get confused as they're looking at brand awareness as a goal, sales, customer acquisition, recruitment, customer service, and they end up having kind of a hodgepodge of social media accounts that kind of do a little bit of everything or a lot of nothing and don't really focus in on what you're trying to achieve. In our case and with our clients, the number one goal that they have typically is sales, is customer acquisition. So with that being the case, we always start with identifying the target personas we're going after, the buyer personas, as well as the target verticals. And that's the basis for identifying the influencers we're trying to reach through social, the messages we're delivering, the kind of curated content that will be of interest to those groups. And then it comes down to, at a high level, how are you measuring if you're having the impact you want? So obviously there are all kinds of ways to measure social. And I think we found with our clients, and we have clients that are Fortune 500, we have clients that are startups, but you can really kind of paralyze yourself with the kind of data that's available. You could look at all the data within Facebook, for example, likes, shares, other kinds of engagement measures. You can look at all of the kinds of things that can be measured within analytics. What we do to keep it simple for clients, and we do drill down, but we start at the highest level. Are we driving traffic through social? What are social referrals doing for your traffic? Then we look at, based on the traffic that's being driven by social to your site, are you engaging those visitors with content? As measured by, are they getting on your email list, either by subscribing to your blog, downloading a white paper or ebook, and filling out a form to receive that? Or are they interested in doing business with you immediately, filling out a form, making a call that you're tracking and tying back to your social media efforts? Ultimately, what we find through doing that is we can look at not only what traffic we're getting through social, but what sources are bringing good traffic that's driving people down the funnel, and what sources are not. And then I think a key point to make related to that is our approach is that you really have to be looking at the results you're having on your own web presence, as opposed to focusing on the platforms. Focusing on the platforms too much is a term that something that Brian Clark of Copyblogger calls digital sharecropping, meaning that you're basically tilling Mark Zuckerberg's soil rather than building your own presence with content. And it's a trap that so many brands have fallen into. It wasn't that long ago, you may recall, some pretty big companies were saying, hey, we're going to get off, we're going to stop trying to market people to come to our website, and we're going to put everything on Facebook. And you saw so much advertising trying to send people to Facebook pages. And they built up likes, and they did all this work on building up engagement, and then Facebook pulled the rug out from under and said, well, that's nice that you did all that, but now nobody can see it unless you pay through the nose. And that's how it works now. And that's fine. Facebook can do that. Twitter can do that. They're all going to do it because it's working right now. But you don't have any control over that. You are putting the fate and the success of your marketing efforts in someone else's hand. That's digital sharecropping. And that's why, to the bullet point above, getting people to your site has to be the objective. You have to bring them to something that you own to really build something of value. So, second point, you have to choose your weapons wisely. So for example, this is obviously an effective weapon for killing zombies. I think that if you know a little bit about how to deal with walkers, you know that, for example, you'd rather kill them in a quiet way and not with like a gunshot. A gunshot will attract other walkers. The crossbow that Daryl had is perfect. A hatchet, something like that, just directly to the head as quietly as possible. Gunshots, heavy artillery, it may be easier, but it's not the right kind of weapon for the job unless you want to bring more trouble on yourself. So when we talk about choosing your weapons wisely, starting with social platforms, I know there are a lot of people out there, and what the gurus of the web are good at is giving you these kind of one-size-fits-all generalities. Facebook is consumer, Twitter is B2B and for influencers, Pinterest is for retail, et cetera, et cetera. And what we found in our experience, again, sometimes working with some fairly arcane technologies, is that you can be surprised. You really might be surprised what works for a brand. And so what we typically do is we'll use all the major platforms, including LinkedIn and Google+, and the ones I mentioned, as well as some secondary platforms that show promise. And we will, based on what's working, what's driving effective traffic, we will weight our efforts towards the platforms that are working better for us. In our typical engagements, we might do 150 social posts a month. For one client, that might be very skewed toward Twitter. For other clients, where, for example, building expertise of subject matter experts within a company is important. We really might focus on building Google Plus authorship. It really varies, and we really we are literally changing the ratios of what social platform, what activity level we have on a social platform from month to month based on the results that those platforms are delivering. So incorporate social news sites. That's just to say, so many companies, when they talk about social, they're really just, again, it's about themselves. They're talking about their own pages as opposed to sharing your content on other sites, the StumbleUpons, the Reddits, and others. Now, keep in mind that these sites, you're on somebody else's land. They have their own rules. Reddit, for example, is something that you have to use very carefully and sparingly because, you know, they will tell you in terms. You know, if your post, if more than 1 out of every 10 of your posts is directed at your site or something that you own, that you're considered a spammer. In other words, you have to truly engage in that community in order to be considered a legitimate participant. And that's true in general. When you're talking about sites that invite participation, they're not inviting you to sell a commercial message. They're inviting you to truly participate. And tied to that is influencer relations. This is something that too many brands simply neglect in social because it's hard and time consuming. So it's really kind of a different, you know, it's a new breed of media relations really, where what you're trying to do is build relationships with individuals who have authority within a space. So I mentioned, for example, that we deal with clients with a lot of narrow audiences. And so there might be a relatively small number of individuals that have real influence in the space. They are not interested in you telling them how great you are and that you have you should be something that they write about or that they tweet about or that they share on social. What you need to figure out is what makes them tick, what's going to engage them authentically. In the same way that you want to engage authentically on a third-party site that is not your own, when you're talking about influencer relations, it's all about, in the case of media relations, so my background is PR, so I'll relate it to media relations. In media relations, people talk about, oh, it's all about people you know. No, it's all about the story you know. It's all about the idea you have. I can get a story in the Wall Street Journal that's a good enough story. I can get a story in the Dallas Morning News that's a great local story, and on and on. And it's the quality of the story because you're giving them something of value to them, the story. The story's not about you. It's typically about tying your company into some larger story or trend that would be of interest to them and their audience. In the case of influencer relations, typically the influences in social, it ties back to a content source like a blog they have, commenting on their blog, reviewing the book they came out with, interviewing them on your blog. Those are things that so many brands, particularly in B2B, I think, neglect to do those basic things. Everyone who's built a blog and built an audience for a blog knows that those are basic stepping stones that you have to take. You can't just go start posting on your blog and just blast it on social. You have to build these relationships with other people who are on social, who typically have their own things that they're trying to do, like build an audience for their own blog. You have to help them first in hopes that they will see that you're really building something authentically with them that they want to help you back. Use automation as a tool, not a crutch. It's good to schedule. I think scheduling, using tools for scheduling are great. It ensures that you've kind of got that constant drip going in front of your audience, but that you can't just kind of set that on autopilot, and really too many companies do. You've all seen the stories of people that set these things on autopilot, some tragic event or something happens, and then they've still got these totally inappropriate tweets and messages going out. Beyond that, just responding to customer complaints and all the things that many brands just aren't doing because they rely too much on automation. And I think this is a headline I saw the other day that I like. Paid organic is the new black. So I mentioned that, as probably many of you know, Facebook actually I think, finally conceded the other day that you're really not going to be able to move the needle with your Facebook presence if you just try to do it organically. I like the term paid organic, which is what Facebook is really pushing now, and the other platforms are following. Because, in other words, it's not like a banner. So you have to pay for the advertising, but it's not a banner ad where you hope the banner catches the person's attention, they click through, you measure the clicks, and that's your success rate of the banner. In the case of paid organic, you have to do both. You have to have a good story that is shareable, and then you have to pay to get enough visibility to start to get some traction. So it really brings together kind of the, if you think in terms of traditional terms, kind of this PR world of coming up with stories that people will be interested in, and the advertising world of paying for exposure. You have to be doing those two things together. Your Facebook ads, your social ads will fall flat if you're not focused on the content. So, third step, stockpile ammo. You've learned to aim at the head. You have chosen your weapons carefully. You need ammo for the weapons. If you watch Walking Dead, you know that they have lots of weapons. What they're often concerned about is they're running out of rounds of ammunition, and they have to go get some more somewhere. They're constantly, reloading their guns with clips. Because when they come in a herd, I mean, you need a lot of rounds of ammunition. Same is true with social, particularly if you're trying to schedule a lot of content. Your ammo is content in social. So, in the B2B world, how we start is, and this is whether it's internal or whether you're using an agency, you really have to research your industry. You have to determine what your interest as a company and as a brand product, how that ties to larger issues that are going on out there. We have a client, for example, that does business process outsourcing, and their business process outsourcing centers are in the US. And an issue, a larger newsworthy topic that relates to this is that the Postal Service, as many of you may have followed, has been reducing service levels. So Saturday delivery, a number of things. And so companies that are interested in getting their accounts receivable in as soon as possible, for example, if you are using a BPO center that's near a postal center, and the number of these postal centers have been dramatically reduced, that will improve how quickly you get paid by your customers. So there's a larger issue going on, and how it affects businesses. There's a BPO story that our BPO story a client could tell, get covered in the media, get traction in social. You identify these stories by finding the subject matter experts within your company that are probably, just because it's their natural interest, they're following this stuff anyway. And so find those people who are just the thinkers and the people who are just naturally curious about what's going on around them. Not insular brand message, this is what we do, this is our features and benefits, but how what you're doing relates to the outside world. That's where you kind of get that sweet spot of content that people are going to engage with and care about. What we typically do is we might do interviews, lengthy interviews with a subject matter expert across a number of topics, transcribe those, turn those into ebooks, a series of blog posts, a bunch of social media tidbits that can be attributed to that subject matter expert within the company. So you need that if you want to rise above kind of this kind of superficial level of content. So an editorial calendar is critical. So you can have an integrated, you can have a social media calendar for what you're going to post across different platforms. I think even better is having an integrated calendar where you're tying your the content that you're producing, both long-form content, blog content, press releases, media pitches, social media. They should all be consistent, and efficiently they should all be working together. high quality content, it's obvious. I mean, Google has declared war on generic content. That's what the war against kind of SEO gamesmanship has been about. The rise of Google authorship. It's all about trying with this kind of content arms race that's out there and all of this generic content, and that includes content shared on social. Building credibility for your content is critical. And it starts with high quality content that again is generally byline by attributed to subject matter experts that you're building Google authorship for. There's a G+ presentation later where I'm guessing they'll go into that topic in more detail. And of course, curate third-party content. Third-party content is the larger industry issues that your target audiences are going to be interested in. And whether you use tools to search by keyword for that or however you do it, I think the best thing to do, whether you're internal or whether you're an agency, there's no substitute for actually having a genuine interest in what your clients do and the larger landscape that they're within. That's how you become successful. So if you know where to aim, if you have your weapons, if it's loaded with ammo, none of that is enough to survive the zombie apocalypse. You also have to work together in groups. You leave the group to go to the bathroom and you become a zombie in Walking Dead. You have to travel in groups, work together. In this context, we're talking about social integrating within your larger marketing efforts. So this is a model that we use to kind of simplify all the things that we do as an integrated firm, which is that PR, social, and search ultimately all have the same goal, which is to drive traffic, drive awareness as measured by traffic to your website. Content, blog, long-form content, infographics, videos, etc., drive engagement, which then lead people to convert either immediately or through getting on a list that then you can nurture with additional content over time. Social is a key driver of that, but without the other pieces, it's very limited on its own. So just to give you a quick case study of how this integrated approach, this kind of working together approach works. In spousal outplacement, we have a client in the outplacement space, so that's helping, working with companies to provide help the employees they have laid off to find a new job. Typically, this is kind of a story that our clients' customers don't like to really talk about. You don't want to advertise that you're laying people off. However, in just coming across some third-party research, again, just kind of taking interest in the industry by United Van Lines, we found that there was a new trend in this economy because there are so many dual incomes that in order to attract the recruiting departments, in order to attract a candidate, we're beginning to offer outplacement services to that relocating candidate's spouse as an incentive. So in other words, if the husband and wife both are making half the household income, if I hire one, make an offer to one or the other and give them a 20% raise, that's not going to be enough to offset the spouse, the trailing spouse looking for a job. And so this is something that has been a function of the state of the economy the last few years. And so it's counterintuitive to the media because with the job market the last few years, the initial thought would be, wow, should be easier to recruit candidates than ever before. But because of the dual income situation, that hasn't been the case. In comes the concept of spousal outplacement as an incentive to get workers to relocate. So this is a larger trend story that our client provided a solution for. But we focused on the larger trend with the client just being the bringer of this news to our different avenues. So start with a press release. So typical media relations stuff, a press release about the topic of spousal outplacement. That secured a feature article in HR Magazine, which is the #1 trade publication in the human resources space. But we didn't stop there. A traditional PR might have stopped there. We also did a byline article for another trade. This could have easily been, we didn't in this case, but what we might typically do is blow that out into an ebook that could be downloaded in return for an email address. We created video, interviewing, this is a journalistic style video, interviewing the CEO on the topic, which was shared on social, picked up on blogs and by influencers in the space. We created a blog series based on the same content that went into the byline article. So one set of original research proliferated into all of this repurposed content. And you see below, this client is on Marketo for marketing automation. So we also did a related email campaign where talking about this topic and then making a special offer to individuals that were on the client's email list. So integrating social, social is really at the center of all of this, all of these marketing activities. I mentioned before that we typically might do 150 social posts in a month. So what you could do, let's imagine you had, you're doing 8 blog posts a month, you're curating content, you're responding to customers, whatever you're doing on your social. That's all great, but if you're kind of just out there posting about a whole lot of different topics, it's very easy to kind of get lost in the noise a little bit. And so one way that we found very effectively to kind of cut through that and get a critical mass in terms of attention, because everyone has limited resources ultimately, is around have a central thought leadership topic each month that each client has. Again, not about them, but about a larger issue like spousal outplacement in this case, and do fully 2/3 of the 150 social posts around that topic. You still, if you've got other announcement, product announcements, or other things, there are ways to get that out there within your social. But if you are really focused on an interesting, a compelling idea that is driving your social, it's much more likely that that's going to get noticed, that that's going to be signal that kind of cuts through the noise. So obviously, if what you're doing on social, on this topic, for example, if it's part of an integrated campaign, you're going to get a lot more traction if you are not only sharing original content, but you're sharing media validation. If you want influencers to pick up on something, there's nothing better than having third-party media validation to say, hey, this is really a story. The top trade in this industry is writing about it, or so forth. So it all plays together. It's so much easier to get that entree to the influencer if you've already developed credibility, authority, validation in another way. So what we would do in this campaign, and typically, Twitter is particularly good in B2B for influencer outreach, and we would send targeted messages to individual influencers on Twitter to tie tie the information to them and their interests. This will typically lead to infographics getting picked up, ebooks being linked to, and etc. But it all comes down to not just a blast, but I'm sending you this message because I know that you'll be interested in it. So we typically we've had a lot of success in taking that kind of approach where we've gone through the process of critical mass, they know we're talking about it, we've validated it through other means, we're talking to them one-on-one in a way that shows that we are paying attention to them and we're not just putting this on blast, and that leads to a lot of sharing. So, ultimately, as good as your targeting, as good as your weapons are, as much content as you have and as good as you integrate, the bottom line in social today is that just like in Zombieland, you're always running. Nothing is static. So as good a plan as you've put together, you've got to be prepared for it to change. Your social media strategy is always evolving because the idea is you need to be constantly testing, and testing is going to, of its nature, help make you change if you're reacting to it. The rules keep changing, so the landscape changes. It's not just that your audience, how you reach your audience changes, it's that the ground underneath your feet in terms of the rules of engagement are changing as well on social platforms. So you've got to constantly test to optimize results because there's just no easy solution in terms of this blog said this or this study said this, because give it a few weeks and that data may not be relevant anymore. So don't chase one-size-fits-all best practices. I think that's critical to not rely on an expert to say you need to do this, 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 and this, but to test with your audience and find out for yourself. A friend, Phil Bauman, had posted stuff that he had actually seen online recently about Facebook best practices. And this is a list of best practices that he found being advocated online. And so keep the post text short, add an image, add a hyperlink, text only, hyperlinks, add the hyperlink before the text post in AM are most visible, image post in PM are most visible, use the analytics, don't use the analytics, edge rank is important, edge rank is not important. Literally, you can completely lose yourself in all of this. And the reality is, no one knows for sure. And if they did know, it's constantly changing. And if it weren't constantly changing, your audience is different from their audience. And if you're in the agency side, the audience for each of your clients is different. If you're in a corporate situation where you've got one set of audience that you're trying to reach, you're in a much better position through your own testing to identify your strategy than to rely on one of these experts who's advocating these kind of strategies. Ultimately, it comes down to integrating around content. This isn't the content marketing session, but today, social in a vacuum that is not tied to quality content that social is sharing in order to drive traffic back to your site and achieve your goals. That in my mind is the key to success, is tying it back to that anchor. So, and that's how you don't become a social media zombie. So thank you, and are there any questions?
Are they going to send out the link to your PowerPoint?
Yes. Yes.
Hey, great talk. Just reflecting on what you said about being authentic, wondering what you think about social applications as a way to drive your communication strategy. What I mean is contests, promotions. What are you hearing about that? What are your clients saying? What are you seeing today?
We do it sparingly. I think it has to do with our audiences. We have tried contests, but again, the kinds of clients we have and the kinds of customers they have, we've had limited success with contests. That doesn't mean that if you, again, that we've tried, that doesn't mean we haven't tried them. We have. We've done a fair number of Facebook apps to do any number of kind of initiatives like that. But contests in particular we've had limited success with. We've had more success with thought leadership content that is of a quality that people respect it and engage with it.
What you actually doing a social media content right now for the North Face, and we've seen a lot of success with it.
North Face is.
The North Face,
Okay, clothing.
yeah.
Yeah, I think you work mainly with B2B, right?
Yeah, I recognize that there are some folks I talk to that are into, on the consumer side, health and beauty, all kinds of things that have, there are different elements to that. But I think that the thing that all social strategy has to share is understanding your audience and targeting. And so hopefully that's something that's relevant to everyone. But you're right. There's a lot of ways to do it. There's a lot of different kinds of audiences, a lot of different objectives. Something I didn't even mention, for example, is we have clients that, 2 clients that have a key objective of using social media for recruiting. So we've got a whole nother track focused on that as opposed to kind of the customer acquisition track that was the focus here. So there's obviously a lot you can do with it, and a lot of directions you can go with it. Yes?
Can you talk a little bit about ebooks and how you use that in your integrated marketing strategy? Maybe give an example.
Yeah, so ebooks, we've evolved. You know, we started out, I guess, 2.5 years ago when I first opened an office, integrated marketing firm with kind of a cafeteria approach. What do you want? And then we've evolved it to where maybe this is the influence of working with enterprise software companies who are essentially our proposals and our contracts, our service level agreements. We have found that a certain approach and set of deliverables can help you get the most traffic, subscribers, and leads for this amount of money. That you can pay a $10,000 retainer and get a bucket of hours and be uncertain about the results you're going to get tangibly, or you can do this program that we know works. And part of that, a key element of that is content efficiency. So what we typically do, to simplify it, is everything is based around the ebook, in the sense that it's the long-form content from which everything else can derive. So it's an ebook about a thought leadership topic that your target audience would be interested in. It's maybe 2,500 words. It's based on your own research as well as interviews with subject matter experts within the company. From that 2,500 word ebook, you can slice that into 4 or 5 blog posts that each have a call to action at the bottom of that blog post to download the ebook. You can make that again the driving force in your social media outreach. You can make that obviously to download, you're capturing, you're getting a form submission. You can also use that as the basis for your email marketing campaigns, that same subject matter. And what we typically do is use those same thought leadership ideas and research as the basis for public relations. So we turn these thought leadership topics into press releases. You might get, from one good 2,500 word ebook, you might get 2 good thought leadership press releases. I advocate that press releases on a consistent basis is the equivalent of a drip campaign with the media. If you're targeting right, you don't want to just harass people, but it's a reminder that you're there as an expert. And so we do that. Those often lead to requests, or we can separately pitch turning that ebook topic into a byline article. You know that today the media is starved for content. If you've got good content, you can get bylines placed in really good media outlets. And you can also pitch that as a story. So we might put out a thought leadership piece like that, spousal outplacement. Something I didn't mention is, I think it was the Sacramento Bee and I can't remember the class, their whole chain. So the career columnist interviewed the CEO on the topic, mentioned it in a column, it was syndicated nationwide. So what we talk about, we use this analogy of how the Inuits, the Aboriginal Alaskans, were known for using every part of the whale. That they used the blubber for lamp oil, and they ate the meat, and they used the whalebone hair for their fishing line, and on and on. They knew that a whale was a rare commodity, and you had to make the most of it. And so our point of view is that really good ideas, not here are the products, here are the benefits and features of my product, but really good thought leadership ideas that can get some traction are precious. They're precious commodities, like a whale. So when you have one, use it in all the ways possible. And the long-form content is typically how you kind of initially synthesize all the research you've done on the subject. Yes?
Repurposing seems important as well as planning. What do you recommend for editorial calendars as far as organizing so that all the content can be leveraged, whether that's internal communications, external, social media? How do you get them all on one platform and be able to share that across? What is your best practice?
Well, that's a very difficult thing to do, we've found, because we've looked for off-the-shelf platforms. There are platforms out there, and it depends on your emphasis. Kapost is one that some folks may be using. That's a content marketing and management platform that has the benefit of allowing, say, freelancers. If you've got freelance writers, they can post in. You can all be using this. There's Contently. That's kind of the place to find writers, but they also have their own content management platform. One that we really like, that we almost went with, is called, out of Seattle, a company called Skyward. What's really great about theirs is that, so it's a content management and workflow platform, and you can do your social from it. It can work hand in hand with something like a Hootsuite Pro or something, but you can also, it also has, depending on your level of social activity and what you're doing, it also has integrated. But what's coolest about that is they will do a custom implementation. So the way they're priced, it's really expensive for an agency, which is why we're actually building our own, because the per client price is so expensive. But as one company, I would really take a look at them if you're looking at what you described, because they're very good, and they will, unlike a Kapost, for example, which is off the shelf, and it's not something that can be customized. You can really have a completely customized content workflow experience that integrates social. So it's a good question. It's a very important question because it's not easy to do. We've tried to do it with just basic project management software, like we were on Wrike for a while, we used others, but having the content management where you can edit within the platform, those kinds of things, along with the other elements of a workflow. Right now we're using a combination of tools with plans to build our own, because we frankly haven't found a great agency solution anyway that does all that. But for a company, I would suggest looking at those guys. Yes?
You mentioned engaging with your influencers with content like this. Do you have any strategies around identifying those influencers in any advanced way other than just looking at the number of followers?
Well, that's a tricky space, and again, I think all the tools out there right now are imperfect. There's a friend, Cammie's here too, our friend Danny Brown. Has anyone read Danny Brown's blog? DannyBrown.me, I think is the URL. He's very strong in terms of the influencer relations space. He just recently produced a book on the topic that is very good. He had recommended to us a tool called Tracker. Has anyone heard of Tracker? So it's TRAACKR, something like that. They're a good tool. There's also Little Bird. Some people have maybe, I would avoid obviously a Clout or Cred. Those are just not really useful. But as you get into trying to taking this seriously, Little Bird, I think Marshall Kirkpatrick, who had been with TechCrunch, is a founder of that. We haven't used that tool yet, heard some good things about it. We're planning to check that out. We did a 3-month trial with Tracker. Tracker is basically, the idea is, unlike, Cloud is kind of a dumb tool that's like, you're getting your post, on your birthday, your cloud score goes up 10 points because of everybody wished you happy birthday. I mean, that's cloud. What Tracker does is if you have subject matter, and this is particularly important for B2B or anything specific, subject matter areas that you are looking for experts in, say enterprise content management, for example, you can, through Tracker, find out people who have written on the topic, who are influential based on the authority of their site, social sharing, other real measures of relevant influence. We ultimately decided that the kind of system that we had cobbled together we use Focus, so our foundation is in PR, so we use the Focus PR suite kind of at the center of what we're doing. And so some of the tools that currently we had within Focus overlapped enough with what we were getting from Tracker that Tracker's a little expensive. We decided we weren't getting enough value from it to continue it long term. But I'll tell you, that's what we are doing all the time. I mean, we're constantly testing tools. One that we're trying out right now is a topic we didn't come up with, didn't touch on today, but it's called Newsstand, and it's a brand new tool that can automatically have employees within your company post your social content. And you could, so as a large company, you could literally, the way it's set up, in an automated way, but I think that could be managed in a way that it's human and real, have 1,000 employees all be sharing kind of your thought leadership content and the content you want to share on social. So it's something where we're constantly looking for tools. We tend to try tools for a while, and then we'll find something better. But you've always got to be experimenting.
Our company is building a product that tries to identify those influencers, but within the subset of our clients' current customer base. So we're definitely in that space.
Yeah. No, I think that's interesting. I'd like to learn more about that. Are we out of time? Yes? Thank you, everyone.